My name's Adrian, I'm 34, and I've been the designated fixer in my family since I was old enough to understand what that word meant. You know the type, the one who quietly steps in with a checkbook when things go wrong, who smooths over fights, who always shows up even when nobody else does. I've spent years filling that role, not because I wanted praise or recognition, but because I honestly believe that's what family did. You supported each other, even when it wasn't convenient. Especially then. That belief stuck with me, even after years of being the afterthought, the plus one, in every family photo squeezed in on the edge, half cropped out, while my younger sister Emily stood dead center, flanked by mom and dad like she was the sun we all revolved around. Emily's the golden child. Always has been. Ever since she was little, the family narrative orbited around her milestones, her ballet recitals, her grades, her college acceptances, her relationships. When she got engaged to Jordan, a guy from an old money family with a last name that carried weight in their social circles, it was like a coronation. Suddenly, everything became about impressing his side. My mom was over the moon. She talked about connections, about how this wedding would be a statement, about how we needed to show that our family could keep up. I mostly stayed quiet, nodding when asked, helping where I could. I didn't see the point in making waves. I was the first one Emily called when the engagement was official. Not to gush, not to ask me to be in the wedding party, but because she needed help with the deposit for the venue. It's just to lock in the date, she said. Jordan's parents are covering the rest. You'll get it back. She didn't ask if I was okay with it. She knew I had the money. I always had the money. And like a fool, I wired her $8,000 that same night. Then came the catering. A last-minute change, apparently. The initial vendor wasn't elevated enough. She called me at 10 p.m., crying, saying Jordan's mom had threatened to move the whole thing to a country club if the food didn't match their standards. I covered the difference. Another $4,500. Then the photographer. Then the florist. Then the audio setup for the ceremony, something about string quartets needing special mics. Piece by piece, the wedding started to look more like a royal gala than anything Emily could have dreamed up on her own. And I kept paying. I didn't even question it until I caught mom bragging on a family group call. She was going on about how lucky Emily was that Jordan's family was so generous, how they really came through, and how she couldn't believe what an incredible gift they were giving her daughter. I waited for someone to mention my name. They didn't. I said nothing. That silence became a pattern. I wasn't invited to the tasting, or the dress fitting, or the rehearsal dinner plans. When I asked, mom gave me vague answers. Oh, it's just for the immediate families, she said once. Another time, you wouldn't enjoy these things, Adrian. It's all frilly nonsense. I told myself I didn't care. I wasn't in it for the praise. But still, it stung. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a text. Not a call. Not a conversation. Just a flat, clinical message from my mom. You're not coming to the wedding. Emily's in-laws think it's best if you sit this one out. No hard feelings. I stared at my phone for a full minute before it registered. I thought it was a joke. Some weird, tone-deaf way of saying I didn't need to wear a suit or something. But no. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I called Emily. Same. I texted both of them. Nothing. 3 hours later, I got a follow-up from mom. Please respect their wishes. It's not personal. Not personal. I sat in the dark for a while after that, phone still in hand, thinking about every dollar I'd sent, every event I'd been excluded from, every time I'd swallowed that little voice in my head whispering that something wasn't right. I remembered the first time Emily borrowed money from me. She was 20 and late on rent. I didn't even blink. Or the time our dad needed a new water heater and I paid for it because the check from his seasonal job hadn't come in yet. I thought about all the birthdays I spent alone because they were busy or traveling or just forgot. And I remembered the voicemail from my aunt last year, the one where she said, "You really hold this family together, you know that?" Funny. I wasn't even good enough for the background of a photo now. I replied to the text, "Copy that." That's all I said. No argument. No guilt. No begging for inclusion. Just quiet agreement. And then I went on my laptop. The first thing I did was call the venue. The reservation was in my name. I'd been the one to sign the contract and make the deposit. I asked them what would happen if I canceled. They were polite, if a bit confused. You're well within the window, they said. There'd be a partial refund, but the date would be released immediately. I canceled it. Next, the caterer. Same situation. They had my card on file, my signature. I asked for the cancellation terms. I got a partial refund there too. Photographer? Gone. DJ? Done. Florist? They were actually relieved. Apparently, Emily had been tweaking the arrangements every other day, and they were starting to lose patience. By the time I was finished, everything they thought was locked in had vanished. But I didn't tell them. I didn't say a word. I just let the silence stretch. A few days passed. Then a week. The wedding was set for Saturday. I knew they'd find out eventually, just not from me. I figured they'd either be too distracted to notice or too arrogant to imagine that I'd actually walk away. That's the thing about being the reliable one. People assume you'll keep showing up no matter how many times they shut the door in your face. The silence was almost peaceful until the day of the wedding. That morning, I went for a walk. Left my phone behind. No news. No social media. Just the sound of leaves crunching under my feet and the distant hum of traffic. I took my time getting back. I wanted the distance. I wanted the space between me and whatever chaos was unraveling. Because I knew that somewhere, right about now, guests were arriving to a locked venue with no chairs, no food, no music, no flowers. I imagined Jordan's mother pacing, Emily crying, my mom trying to reach me, her voice tight with rage and desperation. When I finally got home, my phone was vibrating off the counter. 67 missed calls, 43 texts, 6 voicemails. The top message was from my mom, Adrian. What did you do? People are showing up and nothing is here. The venue is locked. There's no food. No one is answering. Call me. Below that, Emily texted, this isn't funny. Fix this. Then Jordan, my parents are livid. You better hope I don't see you today. I didn't respond to any of them. I just sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the flurry of notifications like they were written in a different language. All that urgency, all that sudden concern. Where had that energy been when I was politely being told I wasn't welcome at my own sister's wedding? The first voicemail was my mom again, panicked. She sounded like she was pacing while leaving it. Adrian, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not okay. People flew in for this. Do you understand how bad this looks? We need you to call the venue. Now. The second was Emily, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. I cannot believe you would do this to me. After everything I've done for you? You're ruining the most important day of my life. This is disgusting, Adrian. I almost laughed. Everything she's done for me? My thumb hovered over the next voicemail but didn't press play. I had a feeling it would be the same guilt, outrage, attempts to twist the situation around like I was the villain for not quietly funding the entire fantasy and then vanishing like a good little ATM. But I wasn't angry anymore. That was the strange part. For the first time in years, I felt light, calm, like a weight had finally been set down after years of carrying it around on my back. This wasn't about money. Not really. It was about being treated like a human being, with boundaries, with feelings, with value beyond my bank account. I made myself a cup of coffee and took it out to the small balcony of my apartment. The sun was high, the air sharp and clear. I could hear distant traffic, the quiet bustle of a Saturday that, for most people, was just another day. For me, it felt like a reset. At noon, the calls started up again. The guest list must have reached the venue by then, and the full scope of the disaster had finally landed. A few people I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, mostly cousins and extended family. Some asked what was going on. Others demanded explanations. One or two even accused me of ruining Emily's life. But then came a message from my Aunt Carla, my dad's sister, one of the few people who'd always treated me with kindness. Her message just said, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry they treated you that way. If you need anything, I'm here. That was the only one I answered. By late afternoon, things were unraveling publicly. Photos started surfacing online. Guests in suits and cocktail dresses standing outside a locked venue. Someone had snapped a shot of the closed for private event, sign still taped to the gate, untouched. Another had taken a video of Jordan arguing with what looked like a parking attendant. There was no food truck, no decorations, no music, just confusion and growing frustration. A friend from high school I hadn't spoken to in ages messaged me a link to a Facebook post from one of Jordan's relatives. It was a long, angry rant about entitled families, about how some people clearly can't handle hosting a real wedding, and how certain people had sabotaged a beautiful day because they couldn't stand not being the center of attention. I didn't even bother replying. Let them build whatever story they needed to feel righteous. But then, around 5:12 p.m., my phone rang again. This time, I answered. It was Mom. Adrian, she said, her voice thin and hoarse. We need to talk. There was no warmth in her tone. Just urgency, maybe even desperation. I stayed quiet. We're at the hotel now, she continued. Emily is hysterical. Jordan's parents are furious. This is a disaster. You can't just vanish and leave us like this. Why would you do something so cruel? I exhaled slowly, gripping the phone tighter than I needed to. You said I wasn't invited, I said calmly. I respected that. That's not what I meant, she snapped. You knew this wasn't personal. It was personal to me. There was a pause. A long one. I could hear muffled voices in the background, maybe Emily shouting, maybe someone crying. Then Mom said, "You didn't have to destroy everything." I didn't destroy anything, I replied. I just stopped paying for it. Another silence. Then, almost in a whisper, "Adrian, they think you did this to punish her." I let that hang in the air for a moment. No, I said. This was me finally choosing myself. She started to respond, but I cut her off. Mom, I didn't say anything when you left me out of everything. Not the tasting. Not the rehearsal dinner. Not even a seat at the wedding. I gave money. I gave time. I gave support. And in return, I got a text telling me I was an inconvenience to be removed. That wasn't me. You signed your name to it. She fell quiet again. You don't get to decide when I matter and when I don't, I said. You don't get to use me like a resource and then toss me out like clutter. I'm your mother, she said softly. And I'm your son, I replied. Funny how that only seems to matter when I'm footing the bill. Her voice broke a little after that. Adrian, what are we supposed to do now? I didn't answer right away. I just stared out at the city skyline, watching the sun dip behind the buildings, the sky turning that deep gold that always made me feel both small and grounded. Finally, I said, I don't know, Mom, but I won't be your safety net anymore. Then I hung up. I knew that was only the beginning, that there would be fallout, that Jordan's family would escalate, that Emily would scream, that Mom would spiral. I knew the story they'd tell about me, the villainous older brother who ruined the fairy tale. But for once, I didn't care. I had finally drawn a line, and the real reckoning hadn't even begun. The calls didn't stop. They slowed, sure, morphed from full-on panicked ring storms to quieter, more strategic attempts, but they didn't stop. Jordan's dad left me a voicemail the next day. Calm, cold. Something about legal ramifications and breach of verbal agreement. It was funny, in a bitter kind of way. I could practically hear the golf club in his hand as he dictated it, like I was some underperforming vendor, not a human being who'd personally bankrolled the fantasy his son married into. I didn't respond. I didn't flinch either. Let them sue me for canceling things I paid for, under my name, with my card. Let them explain to a lawyer how they uninvited the man who funded the entire operation, then assumed he'd still show up, silent, invisible, and obedient, like a check that signs itself. I spent the following week off social media, off family chats, off everything. I needed air. I needed distance. I stayed local, hit the gym in the mornings, read in cafes, walked longer routes home. No one recognized me, and I liked it that way. It felt clean. Like I was rinsing off years of built-up residue, shedding the identity they'd carved out for me. The bank, the background brother, the silent son. But silence has a shelf life, and on the 6th day after the wedding imploded, that silence shattered. It was evening. I had just sat down with a plate of takeout when my buzzer went off. I wasn't expecting anyone. The building has a camera at the front door, so I flicked on the screen, already half expecting a delivery person who got the wrong apartment. It was Emily. Hair up in a messy bun, makeup smudged, arms crossed tightly against her chest like she was holding herself together with sheer willpower. Her phone was clutched in one hand, screen still lit, as if she'd been rereading something over and over again. I didn't move. She rang again, then a third time. Then she looked up at the camera. Adrian, she said, her voice barely audible through the speaker. I know you're watching. I stayed frozen. I didn't know what I felt, not anger exactly, and not sympathy either. Just a slow, churning mix of confusion, detachment, and something sharp I couldn't quite name. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice cracking slightly. Please. After a moment, I pressed the button. The door clicked open. A few minutes later, she was standing in my hallway, arms still crossed, eyes darting around like she didn't quite recognize the space. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't offer her water. I just leaned against the wall and waited. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me. You really did it, she finally said, almost in awe. I said nothing. You actually canceled everything. Yep. You didn't even tell us. You told me I wasn't welcome. Her mouth twitched. I couldn't tell if it was frustration or guilt. That wasn't me. That was Mom. You didn't stop her. She opened her mouth, closed it again. It wasn't like I could. You could have called me. You could have texted. You could have said, Adrian, I want you there. But you didn't. She looked down. I thought you'd show up anyway. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Not because I had considered it, I hadn't, but because it confirmed something I'd long suspected. They didn't see me as a person with limits. Just a guarantee. The guy who shows up, pays up, shuts up. Did you ever even plan to pay me back? I asked, voice quieter now. She didn't answer right away. Then, no, simple, honest, awful. I exhaled slowly. Then what are you doing here, Emily? Her eyes flicked up to mine. I don't know. That, I believed. There was a long, heavy silence between us. I watched her face, saw the faint twitch in her jaw, the stress, the shame, the stubborn pride fighting not to break. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but in presence. The girl who used to command every room we walked into, who turned heads and wielded attention like a spotlight, now standing in front of me, dimmed. Not defeated, but real. Do you regret it? I asked. She flinched. What? The wedding? No. The text. Her lip quivered for just a second. I didn't write it, Adrian, but I let it be sent. That was the closest I was going to get to an apology. I nodded once. Okay. She finally stepped forward, like she was going to say something more, but then her phone buzzed. She glanced down at it, I scanning whatever message came through, then looked up again. Jordan's family thinks you're unstable, she said, almost casually. Let them. You're not going to defend yourself? No, her brow furrowed. Why not? I shrugged. Because I don't owe them anything. Not anymore. Not you. Not Mom. Not anyone who saw me as a wallet with legs. Emily stepped back, arms dropping slightly. So that's it? You're just done. I looked at her for a long moment. No. I'm just, finally even. She didn't respond. Just stood there in the middle of my apartment, looking around like she wanted to find something to hold on to. But there was nothing left for her here. Not guilt. Not comfort. Not even anger. Just the stillness of someone who'd stopped waiting for closure and decided to make their own. Finally, I said, you should go. She hesitated, then nodded. She turned and walked to the door. Just before she opened it, she paused and said, I don't know how we come back from this. I didn't say anything. She left, and for the first time in my life, I let her. After Emily left, the quiet in my apartment settled like dust. I stood there for a while, staring at the closed door, half expecting her to come back, to knock again, to say something, anything that would put a different ending on this mess. But she didn't. She walked away, and I finally understood that she wasn't the only one. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be part of this family the way they wanted anymore. I wasn't going to be the silent supporter, the invisible backbone, the human wallet they called only when their world started tilting. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for a half-hearted apology that wouldn't come. I needed to end this properly. Not in anger, not in bitterness, just in truth. The next morning, I got up early, sat down with a mug of coffee, opened my laptop, and drafted a message, not for Emily, not for Mom, not even for Jordan's puffed-up family. It was for the whole extended family. Every cousin, every aunt, every uncle, even a few second cousins who only saw my name pop up at weddings and funerals. The subject line was simple, a few things you should know. And in the email, I laid it all out. I explained, without venom, exactly what had happened. How I'd funded most of the wedding, $22,000 in total between deposits, vendor fees, upgrades, because I was asked for help. How I was later uninvited by my own family in favor of optics. How I canceled the services that were under my name and legally my responsibility because I had been explicitly told I was not wanted. I made it clear there was no sabotage, no drunken tantrum, no petty revenge, just a simple, final withdrawal of support. I attached receipts, invoices, screenshots. Not to brag, not to humiliate, just to show the undeniable reality. I wasn't about to let Jordan's parents spin some sob story about a jealous brother without the full truth standing right there for anyone willing to see it. I ended the email with this. I don't expect anyone to pick sides. I just want you to know mine, clearly, calmly, and without the years of rewriting and gaslighting that have too often followed situations like this. I wish Emily and Jordan well. I hope they find the happiness they deserve. I simply will not be a part of it anymore. Then I hit send, and I shut my laptop. I didn't wait for responses. I didn't care who gossiped, who fumed, who who shrugged and went back to their brunch. I wasn't doing this for applause. I was doing it because for once, I needed to be on my side, not theirs. The fallout was immediate. By noon, my phone lit up again. Not with hate, surprisingly, but with messages from a few cousins I barely knew that well. Quiet, private messages. I had no idea, man. I'm sorry. If you ever want to grab a drink, let me know. I'm Team Adrian. We all kinda knew they treated you badly. None of us said anything. That's on us. I didn't respond to most of them. I appreciated it, truly, but this wasn't about validation. It wasn't about burning it all down for a cheering crowd. It was about walking away from a life where I was expected to swallow everything and pretend it tasted fine. Of course, Mom eventually responded too. A long, rambling email, full of justifications and half-hearted non-apologies. We didn't mean for it to escalate. We were under a lot of pressure from Jordan's family. You should have communicated better. Family is about forgiveness. She even tried the emotional card. You know your father would have been heartbroken to see us like this. I didn't even finish reading it. I archived it and blocked her number. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I just didn't have anything left to give her. The final blow came about a week later, though I didn't know it until my Aunt Carla called me, laughing so hard she could barely get the words out. Apparently, Jordan's family, so obsessed with status and appearances, hadn't taken kindly to the wedding fiasco being exposed. Publicly. Not because I had leaked anything, but because one of the guests, some distant cousin of Jordan's, had posted about it on Facebook. In graphic, humiliating detail, a local gossip blog picked it up, and then a regional news outlet. Wedding disaster. $100,000 celebration ends in empty venue and angry guests. Jordan's family was mortified. Furious. Their carefully curated image took a hit. There were talks about legal options, but nothing ever came of it, because again, all the contracts were tied to me, and I had been legally in the clear. Jordan apparently started pulling away from Emily almost immediately afterward. Whispered accusations. Tension. Resentment. The cracks widened until, 6 months later, they filed for divorce. I didn't celebrate it. Divorce is ugly. It's painful, even when the people involved are selfish and shallow. But in the privacy of my own mind, I acknowledged a truth I couldn't ignore. They had built their marriage on sand, on lies, on entitlement. And when the tide finally came in, they were shocked to find no foundation underneath them. As for me, I moved on. I switched jobs, left the city I grew up in for one where nobody knew me as Emily's brother or the one who always helped. I built a new life. Smaller, quieter, but infinitely more mine. I stopped showing up just because I was expected to. I stopped answering calls that only came when someone needed something. I stopped making excuses for people who wouldn't do the same for me. And I started living. Really living. I traveled, took up photography, made friends who knew me not for what I could give, but for who I was. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about them, my old family, and wonder if they ever truly understood why I left. If they sat around holiday tables with a conspicuous empty chair and whispered about how I'd changed, about how cold I'd become. Maybe they did, but more likely, they just replaced me with silence. Families like that are experts at rewriting history. Either way, it didn't matter. I wasn't their ghost to summon anymore. I was free. And this time, it wasn't because they allowed it. It was because I took it. And I never looked back. Hey, this has been weighing on me for a while, and I think it's time to get it off my chest. The whole situation with my family was beyond frustrating, but I never expected it would end up like this. I'm still kind of in shock, honestly. So, sit back, because this is going to be one of those you won't believe it stories. First, a little bit about me. My name's Oliver, and I'm the older sibling. Growing up, I always felt like the one who had to do the heavy lifting in our family, while my younger brother, Liam, got away with everything. I'm 26 now, working a regular 9 to 5 job, and I'm still figuring things out, but I've always been the reliable one. I don't mind it, honestly. I was taught that hard work pays off, even if it's a slow burn. Liam, on the other hand, is 22, and let's just say he's never been a fan of hard work. If there's one thing Liam knows how to do, it's how to manipulate situations in his favor, and somehow, he's always managed to get everything handed to him on a silver platter. Whether it's new gadgets, designer clothes, or trips, our parents were always quick to give him what he wanted. Meanwhile, I was left to do the boring stuff, things like taking care of the house, running errands, and doing all the work that they didn't feel like dealing with. Our parents, Dad and Mom, were strict when it came to me. They always told me I had to earn my place and that life wasn't going to be easy. It was their favorite line, honestly. I never really understood why they treated me differently than Liam. They'd always say they wanted me to be responsible and level-headed. Which, fine, I get that. But it was always on their terms. If they needed something done, it was me they'd turn to. If there was a big decision to be made, I had to take the lead. But when it came to Liam, he was treated like some kind of prince. No matter what he did, it was always like he could do no wrong. This dynamic was something I learned to deal with over the years. Sure, I didn't get all the flashy things, but I had something they didn't: independence. I had a job at 16, I worked my way through school, and I've always managed to keep things together. But Liam? He never lifted a finger. It drove me crazy, seeing how they'd bend over backward for him. But things really started to hit the fan around his graduation. It was a big deal for our parents. They made it out to be some kind of grand achievement. Liam had barely passed his classes. I mean, he scraped by. He never put in the effort, but they were so proud of him. And what did I get? Well, you'll find out. The day of the graduation celebration, we had a small family gathering. Nothing extravagant, but they sure made it sound like the world was watching. They had a cake with his name on it, balloons everywhere, and all sorts of decorations. It was as if this was the most important day of the year, and for them, I guess it was. I don't want to sound bitter, but it's hard not to when you've been in my position. It was like they were so focused on Liam that they didn't even consider the things I'd done. I kept things running smoothly around the house. I helped pay bills when Dad's job didn't cover everything. I dealt with the grocery shopping, the laundry, and all the other stuff that comes with keeping a household together. And then came the presents. Liam had gotten his shiny new car, a present our parents had barely been able to afford. In fact, I later found out they had taken out a loan to cover the cost. I wasn't angry about the car itself, but the fact that they couldn't afford it, yet they still went ahead and bought it for him. Well, that part stung, especially when they barely acknowledged the sacrifices I'd made. Then, it was my turn. I tried to push the feelings aside. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who complains just because he doesn't get a shiny gift. But what I got was, to put it lightly, a slap in the face. I sat down on the couch, waiting for my turn, trying to hide the anxiety bubbling up inside me. It was like I already knew what was coming. Mom smiled at me, but it wasn't the warm, loving smile I was used to. It felt different, almost condescending in a way. "Oliver," she said, her voice soft, almost too sweet. "We know you're so responsible, and we just wanted to make sure you have what you need for your future. We thought this would be practical." I tried to smile back, trying to mask the frustration building inside me. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, but I was already bracing myself for disappointment. I had to keep it together. Dad handed me a small box. It felt light, and when I opened it, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Inside the box was a stack of household cleaning supplies, paper towels, sponges, dish soap, and the like. My heart sank. There were no words. No words from me, at least. I stared at the contents for a few seconds, my mind trying to process it. "Mom." "Dad," I started, but my voice faltered. "What is this?" Dad chuckled, slapping his knee. "Well, Oliver, now you can be even more useful around the house. You've always been so responsible, and this is just another way to show how much you contribute." I blinked, trying to understand. Was this a joke? Liam, sitting next to me, was grinning ear to ear. He looked at me with this smug, almost mocking expression. "Yeah, Ollie, now you can keep things nice and clean. You always seem to be the one doing the chores anyway." My stomach churned. I knew this was going to be bad, but I didn't expect it to sting this much. They were giving my brother a brand new car, and me cleaning supplies? I swallowed hard, but my throat felt tight, like I was choking on something I couldn't quite name. I stood up, not wanting to sit there any longer, not wanting to look at the pile of cleaning supplies in front of me. "I'm going to head out for a bit," I said, my voice cold. "I need some air." Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my jacket, packed a bag, and left the house. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but I didn't want to be there anymore. I could hear my parents calling after me, but I didn't look back. I don't know how long I walked that night, but it felt like hours. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, not really caring where I was going. It wasn't until I reached a small bench near the park that I finally stopped to sit down, my mind racing. I should have been furious, and I was, but I was also tired. Tired of always being the responsible one, tired of being the one to do everything right, only to get ignored or dismissed. I took out my phone, scrolling through a few messages from friends, trying to distract myself from the mess that had just happened. I didn't even want to go back home, but where else could I go? The house was all I had, even though it felt more like a prison than a place of comfort. I finally decided to call a cab to take me to a friend's place, just to get some space. When I got there, I told my friend, Jake, everything that happened. Jake listened quietly, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He knew what I'd been going through with my family. "You don't deserve that, Oliver," Jake said. "You've been busting your ass for years, and they just keep using you. You're not a damn maid." I let out a sigh, feeling the weight of the past few years hit me all over again. I don't know what to do anymore. I've given everything to them. And Liam? He doesn't appreciate anything. He's spoiled, and it's like they think he can do no wrong. Jake was quiet for a moment, and then he said something I hadn't really thought about. "Why don't you leave? For real. Go get a job. Start over somewhere else. You don't need them, man. You've got this." It hit me like a ton of bricks. He was right. I didn't have to stick around. I didn't have to keep being their backup plan, the one they turned to when they needed help. It was hard to imagine leaving everything behind, but in that moment, it felt like it might be the only way to break free. I spent the night at Jake's, and when I woke up, I knew what I had to do. It wasn't just about the gift anymore. It was about my entire life, about the way my parents treated me compared to Liam. So, I packed a bag, grabbed what I needed, and went to my parents' house to let them know I was leaving. They weren't home at the time, which only made the whole situation feel even more like I was walking away from a chapter one could never go back to. When they got back, it didn't take long for them to realize something was off. I was halfway through the process of packing up my things when I heard their car pull into the driveway. My heart skipped a beat as the front door creaked open. "Oliver." My mom's voice echoed down the hallway, sounding surprised. "Where are you going?" I walked into the living room, holding my bag. "I'm leaving, Mom." "What?" Her voice faltered. "Where are you going? You can't just leave like this." I kept my tone steady, but I could feel the tension building. "I've been carrying this family for too long. It's time for me to go. You and Dad don't need me. Not really. You've always had Liam for everything else." The look on her face was one of disbelief, like she couldn't process what I was saying. "Oliver, you know we depend on you. You've been so helpful, and now this. This is the thanks we get." I didn't let her guilt trip me this time. "I've been helpful because you've never given me a choice. You've always expected me to clean up after everyone. Liam does whatever he wants, and you keep giving him everything. Well, I'm done." Dad stepped into the room, looking almost confused. "What do you mean, you're done? You're going to leave the family? After everything we've done for you?" "You've done nothing for me, Dad," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "Liam gets a car, and I get cleaning supplies. That's how much I mean to you." Mom's face twisted in something close to panic. "You don't understand. We've been making sacrifices for your future. You're not seeing the bigger picture." I shook my head. "No, Mom. I'm done seeing the bigger picture. You've never seen me. You've only seen what you can use me for. But I'm not doing this anymore." I turned to leave, but Liam stepped into the doorway, a smug expression plastered on his face. "Wow, Ollie. Leaving already? Guess you can't handle the family spotlight, huh? I mean, I just got a brand new car for graduation. What do you have? A bag of cleaning supplies?" He laughed, and I could feel my blood boiling. "Shut up, Liam," I said through gritted teeth. "You don't have a clue." Mom shot him a glare, but then turned back to me, her voice a bit more frantic. "Where are you even going to go? You can't just leave us like this." I didn't answer her immediately. I simply walked out the door, leaving everything behind. It wasn't until I was in the cab, heading to a small apartment I'd rented that same morning, that I felt the weight of what I'd just done. For the first time in years, I felt free. The following year was a blur. I found a 9-to-5 job in sales just to keep things steady, but my real plan was always the side hustle. It took time, a lot of hard work, and plenty of late nights, but after a few months, I started seeing the results. I was making money online, not just a little, but enough to start thinking bigger. I was no longer dependent on my family, no longer living in the shadow of my brother. But as I started to succeed, that's when the call started. I had gone from living paycheck to paycheck, relying on my parents, to a self-sufficient adult with financial freedom. I wasn't a millionaire yet, but the sense of independence and control over my life was worth more than anything. It felt like a huge victory every time I checked my bank balance, seeing the numbers climb. But of course, as my success grew, so did the need for my family to reach out. It all started with a text from my mom. At first, it was casual. She was trying to sound like everything was normal. Hey, Oliver, how's the new place? I hope you're settling in well. Have you been able to keep busy with work? I could tell this was a thinly veiled attempt to see if I'd bite and talk about what I was doing. So, I responded, keeping it simple and vague. I'm doing well. Work's keeping me busy, but it's going good. That was it. A couple of days went by before I heard from her again. This time, it wasn't just a check-in. The tone was different. Oliver, your dad and I have been thinking. We're really proud of you. You've always worked hard, and we just wanted to tell you that we're here for you, no matter what. I could feel the tension in her words. It was almost like they were testing the waters, hoping to open the door for something more. I knew exactly what they wanted, but I kept my reply neutral. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it. A week later, I got another message. This time, it wasn't from her, but from Liam. Hey, Ollie, hope you're doing all right. I know things are a bit tense between us, but I just wanted to check in. How's work going? I've been thinking about you. Liam thinking about me? That was new. He had never cared about anything except himself. I didn't want to be petty, but I also didn't want to pretend like everything was fine. So, I replied with the same vague answer I'd given Mom. Everything's good. Work's going well, and I'm staying busy. A couple of days later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom calling. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hello, Oliver. Honey, it's Mom, she said, sounding almost sweet. I hope you're doing well. Your dad and I were just talking. We were wondering if you could come by soon. We really miss you. You know, it's not the same without you here. My stomach dropped. It felt like a trap. They hadn't missed me before, at least not in the way they were claiming. It had been months since I left, and all of a sudden, they wanted to act like they cared. I could practically hear the desperation in her voice. I don't know, Mom, I said, trying to sound neutral but not giving in. I've got a lot going on here. Things are different. She was quiet for a second, and I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I waited for her response, knowing this was coming. Well, it's just that. With everything that's been going on, we've been struggling a little. You know, with your brother's car and all. And with the bills stacking up, it's been a lot for us lately. We could really use your help. There it was. I knew it. They had been in debt, taking out loans to buy Liam his car, and now they were struggling to keep up. They hadn't thought of how they would manage long-term, and suddenly, they were remembering I existed. But it wasn't because they were concerned about me. It was because they needed something. My heart tightened. I don't know what you expect from me, Mom. I'm not coming back. I've built my life here. I heard her voice falter. We know you're doing well, Oliver. We just thought you could help us out a little, that's all. Just to get back on our feet. I didn't respond right away. I was processing what she was saying, how easily they expected me to just drop everything, return to the house, and fix their mess. Listen, Mom, I'm not coming back. You and Dad have made your choices. You decided to put everything into Liam. You can't just come to me when things get hard. You can't expect me to fix it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, finally, my mom spoke, her voice almost pleading. Oliver, please. We've made mistakes, but we're trying. We really need you. I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. Anger? Sympathy? Resentment? A mix of all of those. I had worked so hard to get away from that place, and now they were trying to manipulate me into coming back, to be their backup once again. I can't help you, I said, feeling my resolve solidify. I've worked too hard for this. I'm not going to put myself back in that situation. That was the first of many calls. They came more frequently over the next few weeks, each time more desperate. Mom and Dad, each with their own version of pleading, reminding me how much they needed me, how much they'd sacrificed for me. They even mentioned Liam, talking about how his grades were slipping now that he had the car and how he couldn't handle the pressure of adult life. But every time I refused, they pushed harder until the calls stopped coming. The silence was almost worse than the constant begging. I knew they were upset. I knew they were angry, but that didn't stop me from living my life. Then, one day, I got a message from Liam. This time, it was different. It wasn't just about checking in or saying he missed me. It was a cry for help. Oliver, I need you to help me. Things are getting out of hand. Dad's been really upset lately, and Mom, she doesn't know what to do. We're in serious trouble. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if I should even reply. What did you want from me? What was he trying to pull? Finally, after a few minutes, I decided to send a short reply. What do you want from me? Liam? His response came quickly, and the urgency in his words was clear. I'm serious, Ollie. We're in debt. We can't handle the car payments. I don't know who else to turn to. I could feel my heart sink. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about a family falling apart, and Liam, the one who'd been handed everything on a silver platter, was finally realizing how bad things had gotten. I sat there for a moment, staring at the message on my phone, my fingers twitching with frustration. Then, I typed out a reply. Liam, you don't get it, do you? This isn't my problem. The words were harsh, but I felt like I needed to say it. It wasn't just about money or material things anymore. It was about principles. I wasn't going to be their fallback, their savior. They'd put me in a position where I was the one who had to sacrifice everything. I wasn't going to let them do it again. I stared at the screen for a few more seconds before I added more. You and Dad put yourselves in this mess. I told you guys when I left, I was done. I'm not coming back to fix things for you. Don't ask me to. I stared at the message, feeling a strange sense of relief. I had to stand my ground. There was no way I was going to let them guilt-trip me into coming back. Just as I had sinned, my phone rang. It was from my mom. The last thing I wanted to do was talk to her right now, but the call kept ringing, and it seemed like I was going to have to face it. I picked up with a deep sigh. Hello, Oliver, she started, and I could already hear the crack in her voice. She was trying to keep her composure, but the desperation was obvious. I don't know what to do. You need to come back. Your dad, he's not handling things well. He's been so upset, Ollie. I'm just worried about him. And Liam, well, he's not doing well at all. His grades are slipping. He doesn't know how to manage everything. It's just getting worse. I clenched my jaw, my patience wearing thin. Mom, I don't care about their problems. I have my own life now. I told you I wouldn't come back. You chose to spoil Liam and ignore me for years. Now, when things are hard, you want me to drop everything and fix it. No. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I could tell she was hurt by my words, but I wasn't about to apologize. Not this time. Mom, you need to figure this out on your own, I continued, my voice growing more firm. I'm not responsible for your financial mistakes. I'm not your backup. Her voice trembled. I'm not asking you to fix everything, Oliver. We just thought maybe you could help us out. Just a little. It's hard, and we don't know who else to turn to. I could feel my temper rising. You thought you could just ignore me when I needed help, and now that you're struggling, you think I owe you? What happened to your perfect family that didn't need me? The one where everything was supposed to be fine as long as Liam had everything handed to him. Her voice cracked. It's not like that, Ollie. We've made mistakes, but we're trying to do better now. Please, just come home. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. I'm not coming back, and I'm certainly not going to keep bailing you out. You can't just call me when it's convenient for you. You made your choices. Oliver, please, she started, but I interrupted. No, I've heard this all before. I'm not your solution. You want to fix things? Start with Liam. He's the one who's got the luxury car, the one who's never worked a day in his life. You want to know what adulting looks like? Stop using me as your crutch and figure it out yourself. I could hear her sobbing now, the tears coming through in her words. You don't understand, Ollie. You don't understand how hard it's been. Please. I felt a pang of guilt in my chest, but I pushed it away. I couldn't let myself fall back into their trap. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice hardening. But I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to put my life on hold to fix yours. You need to face the consequences of your choices. I hung up before she could say anything else, letting out a long breath. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the frustration that had been building up over the last few months. They had always seen me as someone who could be manipulated, someone who could be pushed into action whenever they needed me, but not anymore. I knew it wouldn't be the end of it. I knew they'd try again. My mom had always been persistent when she needed something, and my dad was the type to sulk and try to guilt-trip me. But I wasn't going to give in. I had worked too hard to get to where I was, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into that life. About a week later, as I was getting ready to leave work, I saw a notification pop up on my phone. It was from my dad. We've been talking, and we've made some changes. We're sorry for how things have been. Your mom and I, we just want to help you. We miss you, and we need you. Please, Oliver, come home. Let's fix things. We'll work together. I stared at the message, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't sure what to feel. A part of me wanted to be angry, but the other part of me wondered if they truly meant it. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I sat there in my apartment, replaying everything in my mind, the way they had treated me, how they had never shown a fraction of this supposed love when I needed it. Now, after everything, they were suddenly begging for my help? I wasn't buying it. A few days passed, and I didn't hear from them again. I started to think they might have finally given up. Maybe they had learned their lesson. Maybe they realized that they could no longer rely on me, that I wasn't their emotional bank account, their last resort. Then, another message came, but this time, it wasn't from my mom or dad. It was from Liam. "You're really going to leave us hanging like this? What's the point of family if you don't help when we need it? You've been selfish. We're struggling, and you're just going to let us drown? I thought you were better than this." There it was again, the manipulation, the guilt, the same old tactics. I wasn't surprised that it was Liam this time. He had always been the one to play the victim when things didn't go his way, the one who thought the world should revolve around him. But this time, I wasn't going to let it work. I sat down, typing out my response slowly, making sure every word hit the mark. "You don't get it, Liam. I'm not your backup, and I'm not your savior. You're the one who always gets everything handed to you, and now that things aren't perfect, you want to blame me for your problems. I don't owe you anything. You're grown, just like I am. It's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You've had your life handed to you on a silver platter, and now you want me to come back and fix everything? That's not how this works. Don't ever contact me again unless you're ready to be honest about what you've done." I hit send, my finger trembling slightly. I'd never been more sure of a decision in my life. But that wasn't the end of it. A few weeks later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't pick it up, but something told me I had to. When I answered, it was my dad on the other end. "Oliver, we know we messed up," he said, his voice more fragile than I'd ever heard it. "Your mom and we've been trying to fix things. And we're sorry. We were wrong. We don't want you to think we only care about what you can do for us. We want our family back. We want you back." The words hit me harder than I expected. There was a part of me that wanted to believe them, to think that maybe, just maybe, they were truly sorry. But the logical part of my mind reminded me of everything they had done to me, how they had taken me for granted, used me, manipulated me into being the one to clean up their messes. I had been their backup plan for far too long, and I was done. "I'm not coming back, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "Not now, not ever. You've had your chance, and you've used it all up. You can't just expect me to forget everything just because you're sorry now. You made your choices. I'm making mine." There was a long silence on the other end, and I could hear the sound of him breathing heavily. I understand," he finally said, his voice defeated. "But please, just know we're here if you ever change your mind." I hung up the phone and sat there in the quiet of my apartment, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly free. It's been a year now since that last conversation. My parents have tried to contact me a few times, but I've stayed firm. I'm not going to let them back into my life, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Over the past year, I've been building something for myself, something that will ensure I never have to rely on anyone again. My income is growing steadily, and in a few more months, I'll be at the point where I can truly call myself financially independent. And to be honest, a part of me knows that when they find out I've gotten to that point, they'll come knocking again. But this time, I won't be there. So, Reddit, what do you think? Am I wrong for refusing to help them? I'm honestly torn between feeling like I did the right thing and feeling guilty about leaving them behind. It's hard because they're family, but after everything, I just don't know if I can forgive them. Let me know your thoughts.